Hello all and welcome to the official FanTeam podcast brought to you by FanTeam, the biggest daily fantasy site in Europe. This podcast will be available as a video on the FanTeam YouTube channel and available as an audio podcast on all major podcast libraries, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. Just search for official FanTeam podcast from wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Andrew. Today I'm once again joined by fantasy football expert Holly Shand as we look ahead to the Gameweek 2 full round classic with a €10,000 prize pool for just a €5 entry. Before we jump into that, welcome Holly, and how did your FanTeam €1 million season long team fare last weekend?
Thank you for having me again, Andrew. I had a very good week on the initial FanTeam entry, 73 points, and it was largely defined by that captain Salah, which had such a huge influence for anyone that picked him and gave him the armband. I mean, the rest of my squad around the edges didn't fare quite so well, but getting that captaincy decision right early doors has really helped me. So I'm hoping to push on with that entry from here.
Really nice start. And as we spoke about last week on this very podcast, I went against Salah last weekend. I took a bit of a risk because I thought he was a bit of a 1 week wonder, and obviously that has gone against me. I scored about 51, which is okay, but obviously a bit behind the curve now, so I've got some catching up to do there. So for those who haven't seen it, and for those who have, to serve as a reminder, the prize pool for the season-long FanTeam competition for the 2021 season is €1 million, with a world record and life-changing €200,000 first prize, with huge cash prizes going all the way down to 5,659th place, meaning every one in around 13 entries will finish in the money. The best part is, if you haven't joined yet, you can now join in from Game Week 2 with 70% of the average points from Game Week 1, which is 46 points. And bearing in mind, I entered pre-Game Week 1 and only scored 51. You're not off to a bad start there, especially with wildcard in hand and, all the information that you will have going into Game Week 2. Holly, are you going to be entering any additional teams this week?
Yeah, so I only did one for Game Week 1, and I've already got one entry in for Game Week 2, and I might do another one or two. If you think about it, that 46 points is only 27 points behind what I scored myself in Game Week 1, and you're essentially getting a third wild card in that, because you're still going to have your 2 wild cards to use. It's going to be huge. So you're getting a Game Week 2 wild card and then an extra wild card. So it's really exciting, especially with the fact that we had all those teams that blanked in Game Week 1. So you can literally load up on those now, load up on the form players. There was a few teams that blindsided me in Game Week 1 that did really well, like Everton, for example. Get your Man City players in, your Man United players, Everton, happy days. And you've still got 2 wildcards left. That's the best bit.
It is. And I'm even looking ahead to next week, because from next week in Game Week 3, Wolves, for example, have a really nice set of fixtures. From Game Week 3 onwards, we'll know a little bit more about how Man United are going to line up, about how Man City are going to line up, if Everton are going to sustain their form, etc. So I can see me entering more teams week on week until the cut-off, which things after Game Week 5. But yeah, it's very, very exciting. If you want to take advantage of the Game Week 2 average points or take a look at the rules and prizes for yourself, then our YouTube watchers can click on the top link in the description below, and our podcast listeners can go to fanteam.com and go to the EPL €1 million 2021 tab, where you can create your own team and compete for the massive prizes on offer. While you are there, please remember to click the subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen and to press the like button if you enjoy our content. Just a reminder, to enter all FanTeam contests, you must be over 18 and be gambleaware.org. So moving on to the full round 10k classic game, our watchers and listeners are aware what it is. It is very similar to the free hit chip in FPL, where you basically pick the best 11 players for the game week that you think will score the most points. Simple. For our YouTube watchers, we have the 10 Premier League matches on screen, which are Everton versus West Brom, Leeds against Fulham, Manchester United face Crystal Palace, Arsenal against West Ham, Southampton host Spurs, Newcastle play Brighton, Chelsea against Liverpool in that massive match. Leicester play Burnley, Aston Villa play Sheffield United on the Monday evening, followed by Wolves versus Manchester City. So Holly, looking at those fixtures, which one stands out for you, and which ones are you looking at in terms of targeting for your team this weekend?
I think the big 2 to headline are Arsenal against West Ham and Manchester United against Crystal Palace. I feel like Arsenal against West Ham is a little easier to predict because we've seen Arsenal perform well and we've seen West Ham underperforming their opening fixture. Manchester United, Crystal Palace, it's a little bit harder to call because obviously we've not seen Manchester United yet, and Crystal Palace kind of surprised us a little bit in terms of how well they approached their game with Southampton in game week 1. But I'm still expecting those two to probably be the landslide fixtures this weekend, and we want those goals, assists, and clean sheets, don't we, to be able to get some good points on our fan team entries.
I'd probably throw Everton in there as well. So we had players like Calvert-Lewin, Luca Dean, Yerry Mina, James Rodriguez, Richarlison, all looks very, very exciting as well. So I think there's some really nice fixtures there to pick some winning players from. So excited for it. So with this in mind, we are now showing Holly's entry into the full round classic. Holly, would you mind running through your Game Week 2 team and your thoughts for our podcast listeners?
Yes, so when it comes to creating my entries on these FanTeam weekly contests, it's always the premium players that dominate my thoughts, first of all. And you'll find that any team that are, tipped to win their fixture, their offensive players are generally quite expensive. So in terms of the big players I've selected for this one, from Manchester United, I've gone for Bruno Fernandes and Anthony Martial. Arsenal have gone for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and I've also gone with Jamie Vardy as a little bit of a wild card punt there, because Burnley, it's a tricky fixture, but penalties are just going to be massive this season. So trying to get in as many penalty takers as possible. So they're the big 4 players where I've spent most of my budget. So that has meant that I've had to save funds elsewhere. The tactic that I tend to adopt, and I don't know whether it's a successful tactic or not, is to save money in defence. And that essentially means that you go for teams that perhaps aren't that popular in terms of keeping clean sheets, particularly for the goalkeeper slot, but hopefully generate you some save points. So I've actually gone for Vincent Gaita as my goalkeeper. Obviously, away at Manchester United isn't going to be easy, but hopefully he'll get a lot of saves. We've seen Manchester United generally awarded more penalties than any other side. So at least he's got a chance, probably a higher chance than most goalkeepers at a penalty save. I've not been able to afford any premium defenders, but I've tried to select, middle of the range defenders that have got a reasonable chance of keeping a clean sheet and are capable of an attacking return. So I've targeted the Newcastle against Brighton game, and I've gone with Jamal Lewis there because he impressed me on his debut last week. I've gone with Jack O'Connell away at Aston Villa because I think we're going to see a marked improvement in a Sheffield United defence after the horror show in their opening 10 minutes of their Game Week 1 fixture. And I've put Yerry Mina in there. Obviously, we've mentioned Everton already. I think he's actually the cheapest route into the Everton defence for this game, but he probably carries the most goal threat from set pieces. So he's an intriguing option, and I can see a clean sheet for Everton in that game because, West Brom created fewer chances than any other team in game week 1, and they set up very defensive in a 5-4-1. And if we see that again, then they're going to struggle to score goals. And then in terms of the other offensive players, I've gone for 2 players that are probably in sides that aren't well fancied to get a result. So I've gone with Wilf Zaha against Manchester United and Adama Traore against Manchester City. Now, even though I expect Manchester United and Manchester City to win those fixtures, I'm not necessarily expecting a clean sheet. And those 2 players are very explosive, very counter-attacking, and can easily chip in with a goal or an assist on their day. They're very budget friendly when you look at the pricing for this game week, so they're in it as enablers. And I've also selected Ryan Fraser, who is currently red flagged at the moment, but he did play in the Carabao Cup for his debut for Newcastle United, scored a goal as well. So he's one that's perhaps underpriced for this week in particular. And Brighton at home, it's a pretty good fixture, and Newcastle United are going to be confident now. They've got those big signings that have really strengthened the squad. They've got a good win on the board, solid 3 points away from home. They're going to be pushing on from there. So that's the team. I just can't help myself with that sort of setup. Get 3 or 4 big premium players in, try and find a few bargains elsewhere, and kind of go middle of the road in defence.
I think looking at that team, It's very exciting, and it's also very refreshing to pick the players who you think are going to do well in 1 week. You know, when you play like season-long games, FPL and FanTeam, you always feel like you're missing out on players. Picks like Zaha and Fraser, for example. So Fraser, he played the other night, and apparently the manager said he was absolutely amazed at how sharp he was since he haven't played for months and months. So I think he's like a really nice pick. Yerry Mina, probably wouldn't pick him normally. But in this, he's a really nice kind of wild card. And as you say, you know, he's great on corners. Who can forget the equaliser he scored time against England in the World Cup?
I tried.
Yeah, I tried. Well, I'm Welsh, so I didn't really mind. And Jamal Lewis, I completely agree. I thought he looked very, very attacking and very exciting. Well, so yeah, you know, packed with penalty takers as well. I saw a stat this week where apparently we're expected to see up to about 20% more penalties with the new VAR and handball rules as well. So piling in on those as well, as you did last week with Salah. So Salah's not in this team, so he scores a hat-trick, no. He wins you your game week, he sets your whole week on fire, and you drop him this week. What's going on there?
I mean, it's a tough one, but if you have a look at the pricing, you've got to go with the premiums that have got the fixture. And Chelsea away is not the best fixture for Liverpool. And it's kind of the reason why I've avoided Man City assets as well, because they've really struggled away to Wolves the last 2 seasons. I think last season it was 3-2 in Wolves' favour, and the season before that it was 1-1 draw. Man City have not picked up 3 points away to Wolves in the Premier League since Wolves have come back up. So that's kind of why you need to just avoid those players. But you don't, it's like you would have them in your FPL team and you would ride them out in their difficult fixtures, but you don't have to on FanTeam. So, and it's one of those where it's great to be able to choose players on like a bit of a free hit, essentially in FPL, that the players that you expect to do well that week, rather than, you know, thinking about longer term fixtures and stuff like that. Like, for example, Zaha, he'd go nowhere near my FPL team. He's hunting a transfer away. He's not a safe pick in FPL, but to have him as a 1 week punt against his old club, it's an easy selection. So yeah, it was just an avoid. I mean, I did have a look maybe at like getting Edison or something like that, because I think you can get quite good value on premium goalkeepers when they've got a tough fixture. But I'd spent too much money elsewhere, and Gaita was basically the cheapest. But you know, he can do something for me, even if it's a couple of saves.
Exactly. Was there anyone else you kind of had in mind that didn't quite make the 11?
Yeah, so the Everton guys, essentially those attackers, Dominic Calvert-Lewin was an option in there. Also James Rodriguez. I literally just could not fit them in, and I didn't want to lose Aubameyang, Vardy, and Bruno Fernandes. Anthony Martial, I could potentially, you know, move him to Dominic Calvert-Lewin still, and you know, maybe make an upgrade or 2 elsewhere. But there's not a massive price difference between those 2 players anyway. So yeah, that was probably the part of the squad that I was less certain on, the Anthony Martial pick.
And captaincy on Aubameyang over Bruno. What's your thinking there with Captain Auba?
Well, it is very much 50-50. I'm definitely going to be captaining Aubameyang in FPL, so I might be tempted to switch the armband onto Bruno in FanTeam. So it's sort of like a bit of an insurance policy that if Bruno was to do very well in this game, then at least my FanTeam entry is banging, even if my FPL one isn't doing so well. I do think that Aubameyang is probably the most obvious goal scorer for the weekend. But Bruno Fernandes is a big differential as well when it comes to the captaincy, and could, you know, really shoot you up the leaderboard in this 10k contest. So it's something that I'm considering at the moment, but I feel like I know more what I'm going to get from Arsenal against West Ham. I think that's the safer bet.
I think the beauty in this as well is enter 3 or 4 teams. Just for example, having Calvert-Lewin instead of Vardy, having Richarlison in Zaha, just as examples, so you can kind of mix it up a little bit and you know, massively increase your odds hitting all those goals and points, can't you? And you know, for €20, which I used to stick on an acca every week, and enter teams in here, really put your FPL skills to the test and win probably a lot more money. You know, you would on an acca as well. Okay, well, best of luck with that, Holly. It looks a really good team. I'm sure you've got a really good chance of doing well. And don't forget, if you are playing the €1 million season-long game, you can also enter a free hit 11 their 4K prize pool game as well. So look out for that on the FanTeam website too. So that is it from us for this episode. If you want to join the season-long €1 million FanTeam game, remember it's capped at 75,000 entries. So use the top link below to start picking your team with the head start of 46 points and wildcard in hand. To play the full round classic game, the link is also below. It's €5 to enter with a €10,000 prize pool guaranteed. Thank you so much, Holly, for joining me again this week. We will have you on again very soon. And obviously, the very best of luck for all your entries this weekend. Remember, if you like what you watch, please press the like button. Remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And if you're listening on a podcast, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. Our website is fanteam.com. And our Twitter handles are @FanTeamOfficial and @FanTeam_UK. Give us a follow for regular game updates and for entry giveaways for the €1 million competition, for the full round classic game competitions, and lots of other contests from FanTeam. We'll be back next week looking ahead to Game Week 3 full round classic. See you then, and goodbye for now.